everybody! Where's the warlock? The druid! We need our hit point sack!
Indeed, I do believe he sent us all an email saying that he would not be able to make it for a while. Something about getting aggro from his animal companion.
Well, that sucks. I guess we'll just have to put the idiot in front.
That's not very nice. Mr. Dungeon Master, sir, what would you say about giving us a hireling for the next session or two?
Sure, I can do that. Who would you like me to hand wave in?
Ooh, Gary the intern! Everybody loves Gary the intern!
You got it.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. So, what are my performance goals for this year?
Oh, you basically just gotta kill stuff and, try not to get killed yourself.
That's right. Stabby, stabby, baby. Excellent. It's nice to have my performance goals up front and not to have to wait until June to get them.
Oh, no, we wouldn't do something sleazy like that to you. Everybody loves you.
Yeah, only complete idiots would wait until June to give their yearly performance goals and then turn right around and begin doing their performance evaluations in October. Excellent. I'm glad I don't work for a sleazy adventuring company that treats its resources like that.
Nope, you sure don't. Now, let's go murder somebody else's resources.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. Today in the Lair, I'm going to give you 10 tips for making an awesome Dungeons & Dragons adventure for your players. And you know what? I bet most of these items would probably also apply to other RPGs as well. And don't forget, if you have any questions about this topic or anything else Dungeon Master or D&D related, I have live streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern US time. Fridays, I'm here on YouTube, but Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm over on Twitch. There's a link down in the description to my Twitch channel if you'd like to follow me there and be notified when I go live. Now, as I march through these tips, I will be mentioning other videos and playlists I've created that dive a little deeper into these topics. Everything I mention will have links down in the description so you can check them out. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Number 1, determine the central conflict of the adventure. Okay, look, you can't just make a dungeon map, throw monsters in the rooms, and call it a D&D adventure. There really should be something more compelling about your adventure to draw your players into it and take it to the next level. And that's the central conflict. Many people refer to this as the plot or storyline of an adventure, but I don't like calling it that because it implies that the dungeon master is determining the story. And that is a huge pitfall in my book. A central conflict consists of a disrupting factor, usually a villain, that creates a problem in the game world that the heroes are then called upon to resolve. It's really that simple. For instance, orcs are on the rampage and have laid siege to Rasalantar. There, you have some bad guys and maybe a powerful orc chieftain as the main villain, and you have a problem that needs fixing. But here's the important part, Dungeon Masters. You stop there. It is not your job to determine how the players overcome this problem. That's up to them. You simply set the situation up, introduce the conflict into the game world, and then turn the reins over to your players to determine how exactly it gets resolved. And then how your players resolve that central conflict determines the actual story. In other words, the Dungeon Master plants the seed, but the players water it and cultivate it to determine the majestic tree or unsightly weed that results. Number 2, use the 3-act structure. The 3-act structure is a pattern for telling stories that has existed since pretty much forever. Homer and other classical writers use it, Shakespeare and other playwriters use it, even movies use it, well, except for some of the recent Star Wars movies. Apparently those scriptwriters thought they were better than the combined experience of all humanity. But let's not go into that, shall we? This structure consists of 4 important elements that you want to put into your adventure. First, an inciting incident, which is also known as the plot hook. The Lords of Waterdeep come to you, explain that Rasalantar is under siege, and promise to reward you with riches beyond your wildest dreams if you aid them.
Well, what the heck are we waiting for? Let's go!
Yeah, let's do this!
Second, a rising action, which is the adventure itself. In this example, the heroes are trying to lift the siege against Rasalantar, so they might decide to sneak in at night, fight through a few orc guards that spot them, being careful to hide their bodies, and seek out the chieftain. You see, the players figure if they can kill the chieftain, the siege will probably break up. Third, you want to have a climax to the adventure, which is typically a boss fight at the end. In this case, it'd be the powerful Orc Chieftain and his 3 lieutenants who are in the command tent discussing an assault on Rasalantar's main gates. And finally, you'll have a resolution. This is when the heroes, after having defeated the orcs and ending the siege, report back to the Lords of Waterdeep and retrieve their reward. Or they might all end up dead in a TPK because the entire orc encampment became alerted to their presence. Because, Number 3, have a good plot hook. I think something I hear a lot is dungeon masters complaining that their players go off and do something different than the adventure the DM had prepared for them. And I can't help but wonder to what extent this has to do with having a crappy plot hook. Like, if you don't deliver a good plot hook, you can't blame your players for wandering off into the Sword Mountains and doing random crap instead of taking care of the orcs besieging Rasalantar. So, what does a good plot hook look like? It does 2 things. First, it clearly describes what the problem is. Don't beat around the bush with your players. Don't try to be clever. Clearly lay out what the problem or central conflict is that needs to be resolved. Second, you need to motivate your players to actually want to solve the problem. And this also involves motivating their characters. Don't always count on your players doing the right thing. Sometimes that's going to disappoint you. Promises of money, and even magic items, or even a long-lost treasure hoard waiting to be discovered in a dungeon usually do the trick. Though my best advice is to get to know your players and their characters and find out what motivates them, and then to include that sort of thing in your plot hooks. Oh, and if you want a bunch of ideas for how you might reward your players' characters, check out my 15 loot ideas for your D&D game video. I don't know why I put it up. There's nothing up here. Number 4, distribute loot throughout the adventure. Dude, come on. Really? You're really gonna put all of the gold and magic items and other cool crap in a final chest that the players only find after they defeat the main villain? Don't do that. Spread that crap out. It encourages your players to explore the dungeon and poke around when they know they can find cool stuff hiding just around the corner. And even more than that, exploration is one of the 3 pillars of D&D, and there are players who love that stuff. So sprinkle loot around the dungeon, hide it in places, and yes, the boss probably will have a good share of the loot and perhaps the cool magic items because, they are the boss, but they shouldn't have all of it. Number 5, use a variety of monsters. Holy crap. Do you know how boring it gets for players to slog through an entire dungeon stocked full of only orcs? Or giants, or whatever. Shoot, it even gets boring for the dungeon master. So please, include a variety of creatures in your dungeon to keep things interesting and fun. Now yes, there should be good reasons for them to be there, because a dungeon should make sense. So use your brain, think about it, and figure out why those creatures are there. And I get that you may want to reinforce a theme in a dungeon or adventure. For instance, when our heroes are breaking up the siege on Rasalantar, there are lots of orcs there. But there are also dire wolves and maybe even a winter wolf allied with the orcs. And the orcs have brought on some bugbear assassin mercenaries and bribed a couple hill giants to come along for the promise of food. Number 6, build interesting encounters. Now I have an entire encounter building playlist that gives loads of information for building fun and memorable encounters for your players. But I'll leave you with 3 quick pointers right now. First, not every encounter in an adventure needs to involve combat. In fact, I go out of my way to include encounters that are intended to be pure social interactions or talky bits. For instance, the orcs may have goblin slaves that don't really want to fight the heroes and might even give them useful information, such as where the orc chieftain's command tent is if the players treat them nicely. Second, give your players the freedom to overcome encounters creatively. This harkens back to not everything needing to involve combat. As you sneak through the orc encampment, a patrol of 6 orcs spot you.
Hey, who are you? What are you doing here?
Oh, hi, Mr. Orcs. We work for the chieftain. Yeah, he hired us to go kill all the pathetic humans in Rasalantar who min-maxed and took the variant human trait in order to get a free feat at level 1.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Carry on.
Third, when you build your encounters, include a mix of creature types. So you don't just have 6 orc fighters. Instead, there are 3 orc fighters, 2 orc archers, and an orc shaman. Doing this makes your encounters far more exciting and dynamic for your players. Number 7, design an interesting boss encounter. Look, all your work at building an amazing adventure for your players may easily be forgotten if your boss battle, the climax of the adventure, is lame and boring. Dungeon Masters, please, we need to stop just putting a solitary big bad in the middle of a room and calling it a boss battle. Because that's not a boss battle, that's just someone finding a monster with a high challenge rating and plopping it into the dungeon with little thought or planning. And players will chew through big bads like that, surrounding them and pounding them into oblivion. Bosses need minions. The boss's lair needs some dynamic terrain for players to navigate, legendary actions and resistances, special abilities that may not already be in the stat blocks. And these are just some of the considerations. If you want to delve deeper into this topic, check out my part 1 and part 2 videos on how to make a perfect boss fight. Look at me plugging these videos. Ugh! There's some watch time right there, baby. Number 8, make interesting locations in the adventure. Why go to all of the effort of making cool encounters and fun boss fights if it's just gonna take place in the middle of a boring room? Instead, put some thought into the dungeon's rooms or the adventure's outdoor locations. Make them interesting and unique. Special terrain, objects, gimmicks, whatever. Just make them more memorable than 4 walls and a ceiling. Can we do that, please? Number 9, make cool traps. A pit trap, poisoned darts, a flame jet. Yeah, because those traps haven't been done thousands of times before. My suggestion to Dungeon Masters is to make your traps unique and interesting for your players. Give them something they've never come across before, and it's going to get in their head and give them nightmares, make them bolt awake in cold sweats for months on end. Okay, is that going too far? I feel like that might be going too far. Oh, whatever. And don't overdo traps, unless the theme of your dungeon is traps, traps, and more traps, because that is a thing. I probably overdid that entire delivery, but whatever, we're just gonna roll with it. However, what I generally like to do is just place 1 or 2 strategic, well-designed traps in my adventures and call it a day. If you want to learn more about trap building, check out my trap building playlist. There's also a good book on traps called Grimtooth's Ultimate Trap Collection that you may find helpful. Number 10. Puzzles! What can I say about puzzles? Now, I don't like puzzles much personally, but I know lots of people do, so including them in games from time to time is important. I don't consider myself to be very good at puzzles, but I do have a couple tips. First, steal ideas from others to make your life easier. The internet is good for this. Trust me, I do this all the time. Second, the Dungeon Master doesn't always need to know the answer to the puzzle. It is possible to simply design a puzzle without a specific solution, present it to your players, and then wait to see what they do and how they try to solve it. Maybe the first few things they try are unsuccessful and they get discouraged. But then one of them has an idea they are sure will solve it. And then, just as they are super hopeful and excited that they may finally have the answer, it works. And your players will both be thrilled and relieved. Now, is that cheating for the Dungeon Master? I don't know, but it sure can be fun for players, as long as they don't figure out your methods, because that kind of ruins it. By the way, if you'd like to use the template I use when I create my D&D adventures, it's available now over on Drive-Thru-RPG. It's listed as pay what you want, so you can grab it for free if you'd like, or you can throw me a couple bucks to help support the content I create. Link down below. Next week, I'll be talking about the top 10 nastiest low-level monsters to use against your players. But until then, click right here to learn the steps I take to prep a D&D game. And until next time, let's play D&D.